If you watch this, watch for my stream that's I have set for tomorrow. I may change it because I'm researching about Gnosticism. And so I think I see something in the text that a lot of people don't emphasize because of their presuppositions and their overemphasis and misunderstanding about justification and righteousness by faith. And what that means, but what the issue with the Gnostics is, what gen that. Hopefully I can do it justice because I know I'm right, because see, if I was wrong, I wouldn't believe it. So that proves I'm infallible, because obviously if I believe something wrong, I wouldn't believe it because it would be wrong. So therefore everything I believe is right. Simple deduction, see? So long as you agree with me on everything, I know you have the Holy Spirit. I joke, but it's not funny. I struggle with, do I condemn everybody that doesn't agree with me as not having the Holy Spirit? That's a hard question, right? How to deal with that. It's almost like God is trying to teach us something about how we interact with people. We shouldn't. I'm thoroughly convinced that we can't say everybody that disagrees with us doesn't have the Holy Spirit, even though we hold fast to the doctrine that everyone who's sincere will be given the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit leads into all truth. But I was just remembering some past stuff that I posted about First Peter. You can, I played a thing from N.T. Wright, and he was saying how the old Greek Orthodox icons of Jesus dying and going down into the heart of the earth, and they depict that as Jesus setting Adam and Eve free from hell, or from Hades, or from Sheol, or from the abode of the dead, which is the best way to talk about it, the abode of the dead. But I was thinking, people get all sorts of bad ideas about how to understand those texts. And I was just thinking how, I don't believe people are conscious in the intermediate state, but they are in the abode of the dead. They're in the holding place where dead people go who are not alive, in hopes of the resurrection. And then, of course, people put this together differently regarding New Testament theology. Does now we go straight to heaven when we die because Jesus, that makes sense, but I don't think the Bible's actually saying that. It's not really teaching that. Of course, Jesus has defeated the gates of hell, which, by the way, this is what I want to go into. So what I'm going to go into here in a moment. So I was just thinking to myself, even with my belief that people aren't conscious in hell, and I believe Jesus set us free from the gates of hell. The bonds of death have been defeated by Jesus, but it's not realized yet. People are still dead awaiting the resurrection. But it's still true in the iconography of the Orthodox Church, putting aside, whether that's making images or whatever, just the religious idea depicted in the artwork of Jesus setting Adam and Eve free out of hell, out of the abode of the dead, by his death and resurrection. That is true. That is true. And so I don't have a problem with the idea of depicting that beautiful truth in a artist depiction of Adam and Eve being released from the underworld by Jesus' resurrection. So I kind of think that's a beautiful piece of art, to depict Adam and Eve coming out of Sheol based on Jesus' death and resurrection. But so I would say I think that's a beautiful metaphoric depiction of what hasn't been fully, demonstrably realized yet, in the sense of them being resurrected. But I don't think I'm going to say, even though that may cause confusion and there's all sorts of incorrect doctrine regarding, eschatology, etc. I'm going to say I love that. I'm going to say the cloud of witnesses in Hebrews that shows the hall of faith in heaven doesn't mean we have to believe they're in heaven now. It's just saying they've been saved through what Christ has accomplished. So And yes, I'm an Adventist. I believe the atonement is an ongoing. There's other works involved in the atonement besides the sacrifice of Jesus that he's doing actively in our sanctification towards a greater goal. And it will be an act of atonement when Christ destroys sin and rebellion forever by the destruction of Satan at the end of the 1,000 years. All that's true, and that is a work of atonement. But the saving sacrifices that removes the sins of the people has been made by Jesus. Our salvation has been bought, and Jesus has made a full atonement. Okay? I think Adventists can affirm that. Okay, but atonement just means reparation, and there's other works to be finished, which Christ is actively doing in the hearts of his people from heaven. We are the temple of God. Jesus is in the temple in heaven, but we are also the temple of God because we represent Christ on earth as we let that light shine from heaven through us to others to bring them to the love of God, the forgiveness for sins. So that's my point. Now, I think what becomes a distraction, I've noticed in YouTube that there's these videos, like they get tons of views, and that's great. But it's this. There's certain things that people want to see, the Nephilim, which I think is plausible. That whole view. My tradition doesn't teach that, but I'm not going to say it's false. I go back and forth. But as what's true is that the battle on earth, I think this is a result of bad theology, like the once saved, always saved, free grace stuff. People lose sight of this. Like, look, God is sovereign. He's not literally fighting Satan in the sense of like a power struggle. God is sovereign. He's allowing Satan's rebellion and he's using it for a purpose. But God is, if it was a power struggle that wouldn't have gotten off the ground, God is just, he's allowing the struggle to demonstrate something so that the rebellion doesn't ever come back. That's why it says he sends strong delusion so that they believe a lie, so that they're damned. God proves his people. And the same acts of God in the world that prove his people prove those who are against him. It's like dropping hot coals on their head, if you will, right? So the demonstration of God's character and the rebellion, when God acts, it acts to separate people. So that will be demonstrated fully when it's all said and done, and it culminates in the great delusion that God sends. God sends it, and it's through the workings of Satan, right? He allows it, if you will. He uses it for a purpose. Does that mean God determines sin and evil? I say absolutely not. But because it's allowed, God is demonstrating something. That's why we see this courtroom settings in the divine council throughout the Bible. We see the spiritual battle. It's a spiritual battle for your minds. So look, when Jesus defeats the gates of hell, it's not literally Jesus down there with like sword fighting Satan and winning a sword fight, and then he beats the armies of hell per se, right? In the literal sense, like it's an army fighting another army. But then again, it is. But the thing that Jesus defeating the gates of hell, it just means he's defeated death, made a way of salvation that saves us from death. He's made a way out of the rebellion, which God has allowed for a purpose because it reared its head. And because of God's love and justice coming from the foundation of his throne, his government, who he is a God, a truly loving God. Think about the Minority Report. Think about if time travel existed and they could kill you before you committed a crime that you're going to commit because they see the future. God doesn't do that. That's why he lets Satan make his case, if you will, act out on his rebellion to show where it goes. We know that Ellen White wrote about how God dealt with Satan to try to talk him out of it, but obviously God knew what was going to occur, and he knew from his love what he would do to save his image bearers. But the mystery of iniquity is not sourced in God, other than that he's the source of all things existing. But it's the mystery of free will. But So the battle is really a battle for your mind. So all these depictions of these videos that get tons of views about CERN and releasing demons as though demons would really have any chance against God, that's all baloney. It's a distraction from the real battle. Look, it's not that the leaders aren't corrupt and do perverse things that we might find sickening, but sin lurks in the hearts of you, your next door neighbor. Just look at where the pedophiles live. Just look at the percentages of child abuse and how rampant it is everywhere, including Christian homes. This is a battle for your mind. Sin is an internal struggle, a spiritual battle. The whole thing with demons and CERN and all that silly stuff. We never went to the moon and NASA's full of lies and the earth is really flat. And if people just knew that, that's all just a bunch of garbage. The battle is about sin and God's love and which one you are going to submit to. It's not about this outside force that's causing all your problems. It's an inner battle. So just remember that. The true battle is a spiritual battle in the minds of the people. It's not an external force that's forcing you. It's a submission or not. It's a personal decision. So, at least that's my experience, my battle.